Just a little bit of background. I'm Luke from Mo Agency. Data privacy is a little bit of a thing that I'm interested in. There's not a lot of knowledge around there on the internet, specifically around POPI, a lot on GDPR. And we're going to just try uncover a few little gems that will help all of you market your businesses a little bit better. Dolly's from HubSpot. We're big HubSpot fans, but this is by no means just for HubSpotters. You can do this with MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, Salesforce, anything that sends out emails, cold outreach, it applies. So forgive us if we go back to HubSpot a few times, but the principles do apply. All righty, let's kick off. And please, some of this is a little bit technical, but I'm going to breeze through it quite quickly. If you have questions, Danae from our side is on the line, and she's going to gather all the questions, and I'm going to really try to move through this quickly so we can have a Q&A at the end of it. Danae will gather all the questions. Thanks, Danae. Okie dokes, let's get going. So I'm just going to redirect my screen here. Give me 2 seconds so I can see everything. Okay, so what is POPI? What, why, and how? So number one, what? POPI is a law in South Africa that governs the processing of personal information by public and private bodies. Very importantly, with POPI, personal information can be company information and personal individual information. Why? The Act aims to protect the privacy rights of individuals by regulating the collection, the storage, and the use of personal information. And how does it do it? The Act provides for the establishment of an information regulator to enforce compliance of the law. Very, very simple so far. Now, this is an important thing for everyone. POPI, or POPIA, is derived from GDPR. GDPR is the European version of it. It is the world's leading privacy protocol or law. And just a little bit of some information from Cliff Decker-Hoffman 2020. POPIA is derived from GDPR, and the information regulator will seek guidance from GDPR on interpretations and judgments. So if you can't find information online whether something is applicable in terms of sending out an email or not, go look at the GDPR stuff. As Clifford Decker-Hoffman has surmised here, they will seek guidance from GDPR. And there's loads of information. Unfortunately, in South Africa on POPI, not so much. So quick statement in terms of what POPI is. So POPIA is concerned with the protection of personal information of a person. We sometimes call this a data subject being processed. So this might be sending out an email or cleaning up or handling a database by an operator. In this case, a lot of you are marketers. An operator would be a marketing manager. Important things to understand about POPIA before we start. So personal information of a natural or juristic person. This is the key difference between GDPR and POPI. GDPR is just a natural person, you and me. A juristic person is actually a company. So POPIA actually focuses on the personal information of companies and individuals. A processor is the operator working with the information, so handling it. All right. And then obviously the information regulator of South Africa, they're the body that's been set up to monitor and enforce compliance. So types of data. First off, we have first-party data. So this is information that a company collects directly from its customers, and it's information that they own. So you take on a new customer and they fill out a customer form with billing details, email addresses, etc. First-party data. Someone fills out a form on your website, first-party data. Someone subscribes to an email list, first-party data. Second-party data is something we don't really want to deal with so much. So second-party data is essentially someone else's first-party data. So this is data that someone else has gathered from potentially a client, and they've actually given it to you to use to market. This can happen in partnerships. Say your company is in partnership with someone else and you market together. This can happen, but in a lot of cases, this becomes data that is sold on. And this is where a little bit of dodgy stuff happens when it comes to privacy. Third-party data is information collected by a provider across a company's websites, apps, registrations. The provider gathers this data from several businesses with no direct relationship with the customer. So remember, first-party data, you've got a direct relationship with the customer. Third-party, not. Applications, so might be ZoomInfo, Apollo. These platforms that you can gather email addresses and data from for emailing out or giving to your sales team to do cold outreach. That's third-party data. So this is an important concept around POPI. So minimality. So personal information may only be processed if, given the purpose for which it is processed, is adequate, relevant, and not excessive. So not excessive makes sense, right? You're going to not send 1 million emails to someone, right? And it's adequate and relevant. So, and we'll cover this in more detail just now, but for example, if I'm a marketing manager and someone sends me an emailer that is relevant to my job, and it has adequate information in it, and it's only once or maybe twice, you're starting to come into line with the POPI Act. Okay, so a practical example, cookie consent. We know we all have to have this on our websites. But the truth is they're not always implemented correctly. And I wanted to show this because the technical application of POPI is really, really difficult, and it's often done incorrectly. And this is actually where I started looking into the legal interpretation of POPI, because I've sought counsel from various legal firms, and I've always been a little bit underwhelmed by how they are able to help us and what they deem as legal and not legal in terms of the POPI Act. So let me show you some interesting cookie consent problems and actually show you how it should be done, because I think this technical incorrectness does certainly apply to what we're talking about, emailing at scale and communication at scale. So I'm just going to flip out of here and go into, interestingly, the information regulator of Southern Africa's website. So they've got a beautiful cookie pop up over here where I can adjust my settings or I can accept all. And if you look up over here, this is Google Analytics. So this is sending customer data to Google. It's third-party data. So they don't have, it's not their data, it's our customer or the information regulator of Southern Africa's data, but it's being sent to Google. Now, I haven't accepted anything here yet, but I can tell by the green and the blue that this thing's working. Now, if I go over here and I go say, I have a look over here and I go, oh, okay, the analytics plugins are disabled, and I go save and accept, those things are still working. This thing is installed incorrectly. So here we are on the information regulator of South Africa's website, and there I've chosen not to be tracked. I'm being tracked. Here's Bowman's. Same thing. I can see that this is working. Okay. I'm going to go cookie settings. These guys have a practice that deals in this, and I can enable it, disable it. Everything's disabled, save and accept. And I can see that this is still working. So technicalities of this are quite difficult. And obviously they're not meaning to do this, but technically they're actually getting it wrong. And they're actually the people that are browsing their websites' security and POPI rights are being infringed. Here's another that is working. I actually highlighted this to them and they've actually fixed it. So what you'll see is before I've come onto it, this is actually red. It's not working. If I go accept all and I refresh this, you'll see it's now working. The slight issue that they have at the moment is that their old cookie policy over here is still running. So they've got 2 running. So if I go no, we can see that this doesn't change. So, and it's still working and tracking me. So the point is here that, let me just close these windows. I hope I don't get sued by these lawyers or the information regulator, and let me just present again. The point is the technical application of this is very difficult. And the same thing happens in email. When we're sending out communication at scale or even one-to-one, and it's cold outreach. So let's jump in and let's figure out how we do this. So I start off by saying here, legal interpretation is complex, but it's our friend. You just need to be responsible. So, and a little bit of technical stuff directly from the Act. Consent around consent, justification, and objection. That's literally a title in Section 11 of the POPI Act. A responsible party does not require consent to process personal information. Can you believe it? Because we're all led to believe that 100% you do, provided that such processing either protects a legitimate interest, remember that word, legitimate interest, of the data subject, of the person, or is necessary for pursuing the legitimate interest of the responsible party or a third party to whom it's supplied. So we actually don't have to ask for consent if we can prove legitimate interest. Now, what is legitimate interest? And again, a lot of this is pulled from GDPR. There are 6 pillars of consent in GDPR to be able to market to someone. The most lax or most interpretable is legitimate interest. So, and remember what I said in the beginning, that GDPR and POPI are very much the same, and POPI is based on GDPR. So number 1, legitimate interest can be your own interest as a company that's sending things out, or the interests of third parties, the people you're sending to. They can include commercial interests, business interests, or broader societal benefits. And we'll go into some examples of this in a second. You don't have to ask for consent, and just in brackets on your website contact form, because the user is expressing legitimate interest when they fill out a form. Legitimate interest in your products or services from your company, but you still should. So remember, I also talked about being responsible when you're gathering data. So again, remember being responsible and remember legitimate interest. A person must be able to object at any time to the processing of their personal information. So you must include a way to explicitly object before or after the form submission, and on each communication, and on your website. So on your website is in your privacy policy, being able to remove your details and I'll show you an example of that. On the communications, stock standard unsubscribe, before or after the form submission. Before is obviously just ticking a checkbox. After is when you send them a notification to say, thank you for submitting things, but you haven't unsubscribed on there. So what you can see is legitimate interest about being conscious of the person and really being ethical with how you market to them as well. Okay, lifecycle stages. So this is a very HubSpot CRM type word, but lifecycle stages are just different stages a person might or company might go through as they come towards your company as a customer. So obviously, number 1 is a customer lifecycle stage. So I just wanted to show you a few examples. So legitimate interest, your internet service provider, they have an outage. or they're expecting an outage in a few days' time, they have a legitimate interest to notify you. Or you have a credit agreement with a customer who defaults on the payments. The bank or the credit provider has a legitimate interest, and there's a legitimate interest in for the person being sent the communication, that they need to know that, oh goodness, they've defaulted. Or financial, I mean, this is getting it kind of high level, but a financial service provider, let's say we have our bank is acquired by another firm. I would want to know. Then we go down a little bit and we go active prospect. So this is someone who's being sold to at the moment, but they haven't become a customer. So the first one, an open deal with a call center or a sales team. 100% legitimate interest. We can market to this person. They have an interest in the company and they have an open deal and are talking to someone in the company. We can market to them. Obviously, you want to discuss that with the sales team or the call center and make sure that that is dovetailing with the sales process. But you may market to them without getting their explicit consent, okay? Because you can prove legitimate interest. Or even a lost deal that was logged by a salesperson 6 months ago. Maybe you've got a new special, or there was when that deal was lost, we detailed that it was lost for this particular reason. The product didn't solve that problem. Now it does. You have a legitimate reason or interest and a reason to contact them again. Then we go down to leads. So these are potentially cold leads, let's say. They could also, so let's say they're cold leads. So, well, a business inquiry that comes into the contact page is not really a cold lead, but again, they're interested in your product, legitimate interest. They downloaded an ebook, legitimate interest. 1,000 contact direct marketing contact list, debatable highly in terms of legitimate interest. And actually I'll show you why this is not legitimate interest, and you cannot, this is where that list, if you were to send to those 1,000 people, you would need explicit consent, because you cannot prove legitimate interest for those 1,000 people. It's a hell of a job. Okay, 50 contacts sourced from ZoomInfo or Apollo. If anyone on the call doesn't know exactly what ZoomInfo and Apollo are, I mean, we're very much a B2B agency, so we work with a lot of sales teams. We will download a very custom list of emails and what company these people are at, and we'll give those to salespeople to target. So that's what ZoomInfo is, or Apollo. Very expensive, but they work incredibly well. Because it's been so targeted, they're a marketing manager in a bank of this size, and we can say we sell a solution to that exact person, legitimate interest, because it might help them in their day, in their job. So just to wrap up that little section, prove legitimate interest and always provide a way to explicitly object. So unsubscribe yourself. It's very, very, very important. Okay, so let's get practical. And I'm sorry that was a little bit sort of legalese, and but very important to understand if we can kind of get around these the legal implications of the POPI Act, and we need to understand it. Okay, so how do we automate and nurture at scale while remaining POPI Act compliant? Okay, the first thing is subscription preferences. So when migrating, and this is one of the big problems that happens when migrating or moving contacts between systems. So that can be SAP, Salesforce, MailChimp, HubSpot, Everlytic. Take special care to migrate the communication preferences as well. You need to have a place where those communication preferences are stored. Generally, in our case, for example, our customers use HubSpot as the central place where we store all of this. HubSpot's the one. If you're using MailChimp, MailChimp's going to be the one. But just be cautious that if in Salesforce, for example, there have been some mails sent out and one-to-one mails from sales, people have unsubscribed. When you put those contacts into MailChimp, that subscribe preference is imported as well. So to the next point, to maintain a list of unsubscribed users, the person's email address must be retained. So what often happens, we see it all the time. Someone says, please unsubscribe me, delete my data. You can't do that and maintain the preference. You need to maintain that person's email address to maintain the preference that they're unsubscribed. Otherwise, a salesperson can go contact them and put them in the database and they get resubscribed again. So that's just something that a lot of people miss. Maintain an email for privacy requests. We would recommend privacy at your domain. Be clear that if all the data is removed, the unsubscribe preferences cannot be saved. Okay. And then not all communications can be unsubscribed. So we mentioned a credit provider. If you have a loan with someone, you can't unsubscribe from those notifications, or your bank, etc. So just a quick example of how we do it. So every single mail that comes from us has an unsubscribe and a manage preferences at the bottom. You can have just one or the other. Unsubscribe does a blanket unsubscribe. Manage preferences goes to the little screenshots on the right. And what we do is we actually run different subscriptions through the same system. So we have a marketing subscription, we have a CRM and sales strategy subscription, we have customer notifications, which obviously we don't want people to unsubscribe from, and they actually can't. We've set it up that way. Feedback emails and one-to-one or sales account manager type emails. They can also just click unsubscribe from everything, but you need to maintain different lists. Otherwise, you cannot actively send, you cannot send emails that to people. For example, I keep using a marketing manager. You cannot send a blanket email list to marketing managers for a POPI compliance webinar when everyone in your database is like marketing managers, business owners, operations. It cannot be done. You have to maintain many lists. This can be done in MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, Everlytic, HubSpot, but very few people actually do it. This is what our privacy policy looks like. You can actually put your email in there and it will automatically delete your profile. Just remember that if you do that, we cannot save your preferences. So you might be resubscribed again if you engage with some of our content, or you download something, you submit another form. I mean, it's probably not going to happen, but it is important to know that it can happen. Also, we provide telephone numbers, etc. there, and we have a dedicated email address to just manage this. So if there is a problem, and we're a marketing firm, we're quite aggressive in how we market and email, we do the same thing for our clients. There's always a way for people to control and manage their data. That is being responsible. So email list segmentation. So on the right, maintain several highly segmented small email lists. So we have those subscription lists there, but we actually break things down even more, and I'll show you that just now. And as I said, most companies maintain a single email list. It's not adequate for performance marketing and revenue generation. Email lists should be segmented by persona, industry, company size, etc. I mean, you can go on and on with this, but maintain several small segmented lists that are highly targeted. Again, if they're highly targeted, you can prove legitimate interest. Just a screenshot I probably took a week ago of this campaign to get everyone into this session. What you can see is that the open rate is really good. And I mean, we don't email all of these people all the time. The click-through rate is really good. We had some bounces. So these are people that we haven't actually communicated with in some time. We had some unsubscribes, 0 spam reports, because we put everything front and center to be able to subscribe. And we also highly segment our lists so they are relevant to the people that we send them to. And you never really have spam reports, not a single one. And we sent to 2,000 and we got a good email open rate. You can see by the bounces that some of these emails have been sitting around for a long time. So that it's not a regular email list. We've grabbed them and said, this could be of interest to you. And yeah, we've got 180 people on this call. So here we go into the ZoomInfos of this world and Apollo IOs of this world. So just a quick screenshot of some of their terms and conditions in terms of where they get their information from on the bottom. So we're only interested in helping business people speak to other business people about business. We collect business information to help organizations and people who work at them to connect on sales, marketing, talent, recruiting efforts. Remember, you're buying this data. This is third-party data. And I do suggest you use these platforms, but they need to go into highly segmented lists and used very, very carefully. So these platforms are legal in Europe and the USA. Remember, GDPR in Europe. POPI is a derivative of GDPR, so legal in SA. Make sure you confirm both legitimate interest and make an easy means to object, unsubscribe. And if they've unsubscribed, don't hit them up with 1 million emails. Cool. Multiple systems. This is where a lot of the trouble happens because we're connecting different systems. So often email lists are a combination of data from all these systems: billing contacts, customer contacts, sales contacts, marketing contacts, and supplier contacts. A single truth of source is required, but it can be a significant investment in time, integrations, and software. And often these integrations don't work very well, and they certainly don't account for subscription preferences. So we kind of got to be careful when we pulling data from everything. Something I'm just looking at this now. I did actually include it. Email clients, so Outlook. I mean, I'm sure as marketing professionals or business professionals on this call, you've exported lists of contacts from emails and added them in here. I mean, these things just don't generally have subscription preferences in them, and it often causes a big problem, and all sorts of types of different contacts end up in your list. They're not categorized, hard to categorize. I mean, basically the only categorization that can happen is they're owned by that sales rep. That's a recipe for trouble. So again, just on the context, a deeper look at the scale of the multiple systems problem. I love WordPress. It's a great platform. In terms of contact forms that we suggest, Gravity Forms. I know a lot of people on this call, if you've got a WordPress website, you're using Contact Form 7, which is this little Fuji mountain volcano thing. Don't use that. It's got massive security vulnerabilities if you're using it. Rather install Gravity Forms. There's a reason why Gravity Forms is paid and Contact Form 7 is free. And then you push your stuff to MailChimp to go out. MailChimp is a great platform, but if the data you put into it is not solid, you got a problem. And then what we end up doing is connecting things like Salesforce, CRM, Pipedrive CRM, and then billing systems like Xero or Sage into MailChimp, and we start getting a major, major issue. So at least this is our solution to it. It's not the only one, but choose a system that manages this centrally. So in terms of HubSpot, it's why we like it. Again, I say you can totally do this without HubSpot, but it's just the way we like to do it. You've got a button that just enables GDPR tools. Your entire digital environment, from your website to your sales emails, to your marketing emails, your nurture emails, your sequences, everything just becomes compliant. Boom. And also easy integrations with Gravity Forms if you've got a WordPress website. Xero. It'll suck out your clients and your billing contacts into HubSpot. It'll suck out all your forms, submissions from your website into HubSpot. It will allocate them. It'll use automation to detail, are they clients? Are they leads? What industry are they in? It will automatically assign according to their email address industry. Central system really, really helps you establish legitimate interest in your email and outreach processes. So just a little bit on forms. I know we talked about don't use Contact Form 7. If you've got Contact Form 7, get rid of it. It's got major security vulnerabilities. Just read online about it. And one of the tenets of POPI is keeping clients' data safe. So people can easily access that data that they've submitted and sitting in your WordPress instance. Be careful. So think about the actions that might be taken downstream and in the future when you add form fields. Think both segmentation and what will help the sales team. Things like how big is your business? What industry are you in? How many people? Revenue turnover, persona, all things that should be added in a form so that over the years, all of those people can be segmented. And when you have something that is applicable to them, you can send them that thing and prove legitimate interest. Okay. Set a data retention period on your form submission data. Difficult to do with contact form 7. Things like the better form submission platforms like Gravity Forms will delete that contact data after a period. You can set it like 2 months or so. And remember, if you've sent it to somewhere like HubSpot, it's stored in the cloud and it's not vulnerable. So you don't need it on the website. And then be clear that you're going to process users' data. I'll show you how we do it. So on the left is one of our clients. It's a big SaaS company in the United Kingdom called Payroll. It just says, by clicking submit, you understand that Payroll will process your information to respond to you in accordance with our data privacy linked. This is one on our, in the middle is one on our form. We have an explicit consent in terms of send me a once a month email about digital trends. Remember, if I'm going to subscribe you to a once a month thing, I need to kind of say that. It's very different to now I'm going to send you an email once in a blue moon about data privacy because I can see you work at a bank and you're a marketing manager and this thing is important. Okay, so you don't have to ask that consent if it's high of interest, a legitimate interest. But this, my once a month email, 100%. Okay, then we've got the information regulator of South Africa's form. No consent, but remember, you don't actually have to because by leaving the details, it's legitimate interest. They want some feedback. But what I would say is with a name, subject, and a message, we cannot use that data effectively later on, if there was to market to. So, if I would put industry in here, so we know that this person comes from that industry. So when we do something as the information regulator of South Africa, and we're marketing to, again, let's say the banking industry, we can send it to them. Bowman's, again, this is a law firm and they don't have the consent there. Again, you don't have to because it's legitimate interest. They're legitimately interested in the company and a response from them. Again, I would put something on there that enables you to segment the data. You can't segment this data. Everyone has a name, surname, number, and message, and it just cannot be segmented. So, right. So MailChimp, I love MailChimp. I think it's a fantastic platform. For what you get for the price is insane. And it has a whole bunch of journeys and automation. But there are some limitations. So on the left, there's their segmentation builder. You cannot modify what they give you. It's stock standard, and most of it is around website and email open actions. You actually can't customize that at all. So that's how you're going to segment it. Very difficult to segment it if on like a persona or a particular area of interest. Okay, you can add these to the forms, right? But unfortunately with MailChimp at the moment, these forms are not linked really to a central CRM. So they don't become properties in a CRM. They're actually just standalone. So you've got to kind of get all those multiple choice drop downs and you've got to do something with them. You've got to go crunch the data behind the scenes. So it's not automated, but it can be done. And you can, if you go crunch the details, you can go then create different lists and you can nurture people with MailChimp. So this is how we do it with HubSpot. So just on the right, we can see, and funny enough, I didn't use this list when we actually sent this out, but because we didn't send it to any of our customers, we actually got such a good response just based on the initial send. But This list is 349 of our customers. They are a lifecycle stage customer. They're in South Africa, and their persona is marketing Paul, which is a marketing manager in our world. 349, and I mean, we've got 10,000 plus people in our database. That's what I'm talking about small, very, very targeted, legitimate interest type lists. And what we can see over here is, in terms of form creation, remember HubSpot, we create the forms inside of HubSpot. We can actually add things like industry, and it clearly says, if you don't find what you're looking for, hey, create one. The difference between this is linked into a CRM. So once you've created this field, another person, when you want to go create a new form with that field, you can actually search for it and add it. Whereas the fields in MailChimp, you're going to have to do custom each time, and makes it a little bit harder to segment down the line without getting this stuff into Excel spreadsheets. Just a quick note on email marketing nurtures versus sequences. So we call this automated bulk emailing tool versus a sequence tool. So, and a sequence tool is a personal email account connected to a automation tool. So Luke Martinezson, I'm going to connect my Gmail account into a sequence tool, and I'm going to send the sequences from that tool. It'll send maybe 100 targeted list, but it's going to send them from my Gmail account. It's integrated into my Gmail account. Whereas an automated bulk emailing tool is more for like email journeys. It's going to look more like this, where we're setting up this is from MailChimp, where we're setting up a standard email from a specific address with a reply address, and it's going to go out to lots. It can be a drip campaign. In fact, that's what it's often called, especially in MailChimp. It's called a drip campaign. So sales type tools for salespeople, and we're going to link them to standard inboxes from Outlook or Gmail versus email tools like MailChimp, HubSpot Campaign Monitor. Both fall subject to the same requirements. Okay, always include a subscription management link. So important. Excuse me. Whether it's cold email outreach or warm email outreach, it's the ethical way to do it. As I said in the beginning, just include a way for someone to opt out. And then make sure that unsubscribes for sequence outreach. So remember, attached to my email inbox, and email marketing nurtures. So from like HubSpot marketing or Campaign Monitor or MailChimp are stored in the same system. Because if you're having two different sets of unsubscribe lists, we got a problem. And take it from me, the best way to generate leads is to make sure the salespeople are reaching out. I think a few of you on this call might have been sent a note from someone from our sales team, as well as some of it might have come from our marketing team. It's the best way to generate leads and create interest. But just make sure one place that you keep unsubscribes. Okay, so nicely on time. I'm sorry I whipped through this quite quickly, but I didn't want to take up too much of your time. So the key takeaways, and this recording will be sent later if you want to share it or go through it again. POPI and GDPR don't restrict the sending of cold or nurture emails. Popular to contrary relief. It is just that your emails have to meet certain requirements. Number one, establish legitimate interest. Okay? Establish legitimate interest for each and every contact you reach out to. If you cannot go, that person, that person, that person, that person I know because they're this persona in this industry, this company size, you got a problem. So that's why those big email lists, negative. Okay, you have to ask for explicit consent. Remember the click box on my contact form. Number two, you need to provide an easy out. So always provide an easy way to manage subscription preferences. And so you unsubscribe or manage, and I showed you the different email lists that you can subscribe to. And also on your privacy page, have a privacy at mydomain.com or .co.za, whatever it is, to be able to unsubscribe. And then 3 highly segmented lists. So create many highly segmented and dynamic marketing lists to honor legitimate interest. So by dynamic, what I mean is you might have an email list that is for leads in the banking industry. Some of those people might close. You get them as customers. Dynamic means the system will automatically, based on the lifecycle stage, move them out and move them into a customer list of banking clients. So having static lists, which unfortunately is the case in a lot of email applications, is a bit of a problem, and you're forced to always upload the latest data. You want dynamic marketing lists. And there are a few good systems that do that, HubSpot being one of them, obviously. Again, sorry for the plug, but I do like the system. And then I suppose we just pass over to Dolly, and she's just going to mention, as I said, Dolly is from HubSpot. I wanted to just bring her on board. I wanted to cover 2 slides quickly, because we're almost at time, why she thinks HubSpot's good and solves a lot of these problems. And another little nugget, Dolly has kindly said that if you contact her and just let her know, even if you're not really buying HubSpot now, they will organize a discount of between 10 and 22.5% for you on any HubSpot that you buy, just by saying, hey, I was on this webinar, and that she'll honor that for at least 6 months to a year. But you just need to reach out to her, and I'll share her details with you after that. Dolly, over to you.
Thank you so much, Luke. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Thank you, Luke, for providing a great insight into the data privacy and email nurturing and automations today. I believe everyone has actually learned one thing or 2 things today based on how to use email nurturing going forward. So basically, everyone, my name is Dolly, and I'm the Principal Account Director here in HubSpot, and I look after Africa as a region. So there you go. So in terms of everything that we've discussed today that Luke has brought us on for today, I'm here to talk about HubSpot CRM platform. I'm sure you all know what HubSpot does, but from, just to simplify things, HubSpot is a full platform that helps you with all your business needs, from the marketing side of things to sales, to service, to CMS and operations, without adding any unnecessary complexity to anything. So basically with HubSpot, we look after all our customers. We have over 158,000 customers across the world, and still growing, actually across 120 countries, so globally. So if you need anything today in terms of any marketing solution, I would be your go-to person. So we've spoken a lot about, email nurturing, what it does, how can you actually leverage, the POPI Act that is already in place. So based on that, I would recommend, if it's something that you're looking into, email marketing for your company, and you're currently using maybe MailChimp or any other solution out there, and it's not working for you, I would recommend that you consider working with us within HubSpot, and then we can take you through the process in terms of how HubSpot would potentially help you build your business going forward. And, you're still within the legal binds, and you're not, breaking the laws or anything. If you can show the next slide, please, Luke.
Sure.
Thank you. So basically, for your marketing solution, I would prefer, the Marketing Hub. And across Marketing Hub, there's a lot of capabilities that it would help you with for your businesses. As you can see on the screen, Luke mentioned the likes of segmentation. Now you can use your list and all during this webinar today. This is where you can actually leverage it within the Marketing Hub. So you'll be able to do your list segmentation. You can have multiple lists for your targeting, and which makes it easier for you. And then you're still within the law, you're not breaking it. You're able to leverage, automations to nurture your contacts and off, warm leads to the sales team when it's ready. And then it makes it easier when you're reporting. So I would always say this to my customers, that our reporting capabilities is actually second to none, because as you all know, garbage in, garbage out. So whatever information that you have in the system, you're able to pull it out and report accurately on the system, which goes a long way. And with HubSpot as well, one of the key tools that I love the most regarding the marketing hub is, I'm sure we have a lot of head of marketing within and head of marketing department within this webinar today. One thing I love the most is because when you're running campaigns, you find it difficult to actually understand what channel the revenue is coming from, because you're running your campaigns on your paid ads on Facebook, you're doing LinkedIn, you're doing Google ads, you're doing everything, but you don't even know if it's working. One of the key things that you're able to report on HubSpot is, once you have your integrations done with HubSpot based on the paid channels that you're doing, or paid ads that you're doing, you're able to actually see fully, clearly, where those revenue is coming from. So if Facebook is, bringing you more revenue than LinkedIn, for example, you'll be able to report accurately on it. And based on that, you have this top level insight into those marketing campaigns that you're running, into those marketing campaigns that you're running. And instead of you pumping money on LinkedIn, you now know that I'm going to be pumping money on Facebook because I'm getting more revenue out of it than LinkedIn. So basically, HubSpot helps you nurture those leads and actually let you see the return of investment that comes out of those investment that you've made based on all those marketing campaigns that you're running. So from HubSpot point of view, would HubSpot be able to solve the challenges that you have in terms of, email nurturing, unable to have insight into what's going on? 100%. And if you have any challenges that you would like to discuss further, I'm happy to, have a meeting with yourself. My meeting link is actually going to be embedded in there. If you can just put it in there for me, Danae, my meeting link is going to be in there. So feel free to book a time that suits you with me. I'm happy to take a meeting with you, do a discovery process with you, understand a bit more in terms of what you need. How can we help you? Can we actually help you? And then we take you from there. So if you need anything, feel free to reach out to me. My email address, meeting link, my LinkedIn profile would be in this, would be dropped in.
And Dolly, we'll send it in a wrap up with the recording as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Dolly. Right, everyone. So any questions? I hope that was valuable and worth your time. Thank you for spending the time with us. Danae, are there any questions that need answering?
Yes, so we have a question from Zaina. She's asking, what tool are you using to check if cookies are enabled or disabled?
So not really checking all cookies, but what I used there was Google Tag Assistant. So I was actually looking at the specific cookies that track analytics and Google Analytics. And it's kind of like a blanket analytics thing. Most people use Google Analytics, so you can see if it's working or not. But what I can tell you is there is a really good website called gachecker.com, I think, and that also does the same thing, and it'll tell you what other cookies are running on there as well. But Google Tag Assistant just checks Google Tag Manager and some of the conversion tracking things in AdWords and analytics. Yeah, just a nice way to see that they're working or not. Yeah. And you, by the way, also you just look at the colors. So red is obviously not working, and if you click decline on cookies, that thing should go red. If it's not going red, it's a problem. And what I can tell you is that 95% of people that install these things don't do it properly. So what I would say is, just out of interest, and I actually did mean to show this, but I forgot. The way we do it is we don't take any chances, and we just say this website uses cookies to remember and improve your experience. To find out more, see our privacy policy. And if you want to use our website, you need to click accept. Much easier than trying to configure something that will manage or turn on and turn off the plugins, or sorry, the cookie tracking codes. So just do a blanket thing. I really suggest it. And if you remember what I said is, try just be upfront with everyone when you're doing this stuff. So, tell them you're going to grab their data and process it to get back to them on the forms. Tell them you're going to subscribe them to a mail. And if you click this, tell them you're definitely going to track them with cookies and they have to click accept, not decline. Because go do that test. Generally, people haven't done it properly. 90% of websites, at least in South Africa, wrong. Next one.
Cool. Next question. Does proving legitimate interest need actual evidence? Can we prove legitimate interest by saying, for example, that John Doe belongs in our industry and he has interest with our direct competitor?
Well, certainly belongs in our industry. So industry is, again, if you've got a database of 1,000, let's say like 10,000 people, and you go, they're in our industry or in a targeted industry, that list's going to be quite big. You'd probably need to go a few steps down. So to say they're in our industry, plus they are in operations, so they will be interested in the software that we have that optimizes operations. So you go a little bit deeper than just in our industry. And then I think probably quite hard to prove that they have an interest in your competitor, or they're a client of your competitor. I guess you could, but I think that's not really your data, and I don't think you would have it. So generally, you probably wouldn't use that. But if you were going to use industry, I think you need to go a few steps deeper. And then you've got a list and you can probably, and as I said, you need to go to every single one of those people in that list and go, yes, legitimate interest. Just broadly industry is going to be too broad.
Fabulous. And then a question from Bianca. She's asking if she acquired an email address from a platform like Apollo, and I send the prospect a one-on-one sales email and they report my email as spam or junk. Would this affect my company's domain?
Yes. So that's what you don't want. And that's what, unfortunately, a lot of people that are using Apollo IO, ZoomInfo are doing. They're not putting an unsubscribe or I'm not interested in this link on that email. Even though that's coming one-to-one from your inbox, if it's cold outreach, I really suggest just putting an ability to say, please don't send this. This is of no interest to me. Because when they do say that you're spamming, it does affect your whole company's domain. And you might find that the credit department starts having issues with their emails getting through to their clients who owe the company money, because the sales team has done too many of those emails. And has been put in the spam box too often. So yeah, it does 100% affect it. That's why I say put an unsubscribe link on it, even if it's a one-to-one email, but it's cold outreach.
And then our last question, how would you compare your typical business-to-business inbound lead quality versus a third-party lead?
Depends what you do with it. So inbound leads are typically, at least inbound marketing professionals are typically trained on a form. You don't just put name, email, telephone number, message. You actually ask them, what do you do? What's your persona? Are you marketing? Are you finance? Are you a business leader? We use those details to then reach out to people. So whether it's from an Apollo or a ZoomInfo or from inbound, it doesn't matter. They're both contacts. I would say you're going to get a better response from the inbound because that contact has been introduced to your company already. But it does depend what you do with it. So again, it's these small lists that you're going to push to, it's these small lists that you're going to push your message out on. that are relevant to people. So much the same, but yeah, you slightly warm on the inbound methodology.
And there's one last question that just snuck in. When setting the data retention period on form submission data, is there a specific time frame prescribed, or does it depend on the type of data being collected?
My standard that I suggest our team to do is 3 months. You know, sometimes you want to go back into that data and review it. Especially when you're doing digital marketing, you kind of want to just be able to go in and see lead flow, and it's nice to be able to see that in WordPress. You know, okay, last month we got X amount, this month we got this amount. So yeah, I would say 3 months, but you mustn't just leave it in there, because you know you can be taken off guard by the web developer didn't update a certain plugin. And it can be like an SEO plugin or something to minimize images, and they get into your website and they grab all that data. So less is better, but you know, there's a balance. You need some of that data in there to make decisions. But just put some sort of expiry on it. But again, most people don't do that at all, and it just sits in there. I mean, most websites we go on to like audit years of data. Like really, in terms of POPI, that's highly illegal, because it's not being responsible with the data, and by submitting their data, they've expected you to be compliant with POPI and being responsible with their data, and that's not being responsible. So yeah, 3 months should be less, but you know, it depends what you need as a digital marketer to do your job.
Perfect. Those were all of our questions.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope that was useful. It's a bit of a pet subject for me. I really enjoy this stuff, and I got into it because I found that when we took legal counsel from very big firms, we just weren't able to get a straight answer on it. I mean, I think I showed that by, you know, showed Bowman's and Mickelson's, which are big. Bowman's a huge firm, but I mean, the digital marketing is getting that wrong. I mean, it's not intentful, but yeah, it's not right. So a lot of the application is all over the place. So I hope you got some benefit. The recording will be sent, and thank you for joining us.